Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about immigration in the Gilded Age. The period we're going to be talking about is sometimes referred to as new immigration, and so this immigration was really the second wave of major immigration that occurred in the United States. To understand it though, we have to first look at the first major wave. So the first wave really occurred in the early 1800s, and this was characterized mostly by more wealthy immigrants from Northwest Europe. Countries like Great Britain, Ireland, France, Germany, and Scandinavia. They were all really similar culturally. They practiced similar religions, spoke similar languages, practiced similar traditions, and of course they all looked pretty much the same. Okay, had that lighter complexion that is pretty typical of Northwest Europe. So I mentioned they're wealthy. They could afford the trip to the United States. So they didn't really come for economic reasons. This, of course, contrasts with the second major wave of immigration that we are talking about in many ways. So the second wave was much higher in number. Many more immigrants came during the second wave. The second wave was much more diverse. People from Southeast Europe, like Italy, Poland, Russia, Greece, as well as many from China came during this period. So they were all obviously very culturally diverse. They spoke different languages. They practiced different religions. Many Jewish people, as well as Catholics and Orthodox Christians from Eastern Europe came during this time. And they obviously practiced different traditions. So this made it much more difficult to fit in when they ultimately came over to the United States. But one of the big reasons they came over was because of jobs. Obviously, the United States during this period was going through the second industrial revolution. So you had factories in the east, mines in the west, and railroads connecting the entire country made for many new jobs. These new jobs were available in the factories, in the mines, and on the railroads. So a need for immigration to fill these jobs and keep the economy moving. But obviously, socially, this created a rift with some of the native-born populations. One of the biggest groups to form during this period was the Immigration Restriction League, and their main goal was to restrict immigration to the United States only to people from Northwest Europe. Okay, they wanted the white Protestant immigrants like them. They wanted people coming to this country that looked like them. And one of the ways they tried to achieve this was by portraying any other group as dangerous or threatening, as we will see in some of these political cartoons that we'll take a look at later. One big piece of legislation that occurred during this time was the Chinese Exclusion Act that took place in 1882, and its main goal was to completely cut off immigration from China. And one of the effects, of course, was that it severely deflated the Chinese population in the United States. Previously Chinese workers had been coming to the United States to work in the gold mines of California and helping build railroads. But in 1882, this completely stopped. And so this piece of legislation is important because labor unions and the Immigration Restriction League would later use it as kind of a model for their own goals of limiting immigration later on. And another way that immigrants were portrayed negatively was, of course, through the media. So a lot of the media at the time helped create the image of the dangerous immigrant. And these narratives kind of helped to blame immigrants for many of society's problems like crime and poverty and unemployment, and basically anything else that was a problem in the United States at the time they could blame on immigrants, just to kind of turn public sentiment totally against immigration. And so we'll see in the political cartoons that we take a look at next how the media was in part responsible for creating some of these narratives. So for our next activity, we're going to be looking at political cartoons. So as an example of how we should look at these cartoons and think about them and what they mean, I'm going to kind of model what that would look like. So this cartoon is called Looking Backward. And so basically these 5 businessmen up here are portrayed as extremely wealthy, and here we have the immigrant coming to the United States with everything he has. You know, he looks much poorer than these 5 gentlemen there, and the idea of this cartoon is that the wealthy elite are turning their backs on the new immigrant, and that they are hypocritical because they and their families were once the same as this immigrant coming in. So when we look at political cartoons, they obviously have a message. They have a stance. So we need to look at what is that saying? What is this artist trying to convey? What kind of symbols are they using in their cartoon? So in this one, we can look at the top hats. This is a clear symbol of wealth and prestige in the society. What other symbols are there? There is the shadows of their forefathers behind them. This indicates that they themselves came from an immigrant's background, and this is obviously to point out their hypocrisy. So what is this artist saying? What message are they trying to convey? What stance are they taking? These are all questions you can ask yourselves, and in the email I have sent to you, there are some more helpful questions you can ask as you look at these cartoons, and that you will consider when you're writing your discussion posts after that. Thanks.